Right, hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are doing my 2025 MotoGP mid-season rider rankings. God, that's a long title. We've reached the halfway stage of the season and I think it's time to bring this video idea back. It did really well last year, it was very popular among you guys, so why not bring it back for the new season? So without further ado, I think we should just get straight into it. Just like last year, we're doing this in the form of a tier list, so the tiers this season are incredible, really good, decent, rubbish, and then complete and utter disaster at the bottom. There's been a wide range of performances this season, so I think we should just get straight into it. And we're going to start with Jorge Martin. Now, if you're not clinically blind, you may have noticed that there is a sixth tier on this tier list this year, called Not Applicable, and that is where Jorge Martin is going to go, purely because I can't judge his season based off of 2 Grand Prix. I'm doing this based purely off how the riders have performed, and I can't judge Jorge Martin off his performances because he's only done 2 races. He's been fine in the 2 races he has done, but that's not big enough of a sample size for me to put him in any of these other tiers, so I think the only right thing to do is to put Jorge Martin in his own tier called Not Applicable. So with him out the way, we can now start the list properly with Joan Zarco. Zarco, I think, has had a really good season. He, at one point, fucking dog. Shut up. For the first 7 rounds of the season, Joan Zarco was looking like he'd be up in here. He was having an incredible season up until after Silverstone. Since Silverstone, though, his form has really fallen off a cliff. He's only scored 12 points in the past 5 Grand Prix, which compared to the first half of the season for him, that's pretty poor. So as a result, he's moved down from incredible to really good, but it's still been a very good season from Zarco, and he's been by far the best Honda. Of course, winning at Le Mans, a podium at Silverstone. Such a good season from Zarco, he's done really well. Next we have one of his Honda teammates in Luca Marini. Marini, of course, has struggled from injuries this season, but apart from that, when he has been fit, he's done perfectly fine. I don't think he's been, that impressive, but he's also had a big upgrade from last year. Overall, he's going in at decent, I think. I think that tier perfectly sums up his season. He's not been spectacular, but he's not been terrible. Big improvement from last year. He's going in decent. Next up we have Maverick Vinales, and this is a difficult one because if you look on paper and at his results, you'd think that Vinales is having a bit of an average season, but that doesn't paint the full picture. Vinales has been very unlucky this season. Of course, he had his podium in Qatar taken away from him. He was also crashed out in Mugello. He also crashed out of Aragon, which was unlucky, and he has also been injured for the past 2 races, which puts his points tally as a bit of a false one, really. He should have more points than he's got. As a result, I'm putting him in a really good season. His points tally isn't that great, but his performances this season I think have been really good. They've not been flawless, he has had some bad weekends, but overall he's had a really good season and much better than what I expected him to have. Next up we have Fabio Quartararo, and I'm going to put him straight in incredible. A bit like Vinales really, his points tally isn't that impressive, but I think his performances have been absolutely phenomenal for the bike he's got. I'm still convinced that Yamaha bike is not very good, and Guataro, to get 4 pole positions out of it, is ridiculous. His record from pole positions hasn't been great this season, but I really think that's just down to the bike, it's not his fault. We need to remember he was also extremely unlucky in Silverstone not to win that race. He also got a podium in Jerez, as well as a sprint podium in Germany. He's had a really good season and it's a big step up from last season, and I'm really glad we're seeing Quartararo back to his best. It's been a couple seasons since we've seen Quartararo truly in this type of form, and I'm so glad we're seeing him back to his best. Anyways, an incredible season from Guataro. He is going in the top tier. Next up we have Franco Morbidelli. Now, Morbidelli was someone who, going into this season, I had 0 expectations of, and he has completely shut me up because he has had a very solid season. He is being helped by the fact he is on the best bike on the grid and the fact he's got a year's experience on that bike, but he's taken advantage of it. He's gotten back onto the podium in Argentina, and he's just looked very solid, getting quite a lot of top 5 finishes, qualifying solidly, and just being a lot more consistent than his teammate. Overall, I'll put him in really good, near the bottom though. Yeah, it's just been a really consistent season for Morbidelli on the most part. He would be beating his teammate in the championship if he didn't get injured in Germany. And yeah, he's just been more consistent than the Gian Antonio, so I think he's worthy of going in really good. Now, up to this point, we've had mostly positive seasons so far I've been reviewing. That's going to change now with Enea Bastianini. I'm going to put him in rubbish season, and I was seriously considering putting him in complete and utter disaster. I think his weekend in Brno just gone has saved him from going to the bottom tier. Bastianini obviously has been struggling to adapt to the new bike, and as a result he's not been getting very good results. He's had no standout results until last weekend at Brno, and he has managed to pick up some solid results just from being the tyre whisperer and managing to drag that bike up towards the end of races. I did expect him to have a bit of an adjustment period where he would struggle a bit on the KTM, but not to this extent. And yeah, some people might put him in the bottom tier, but you know, considering it's a new bike, a completely different bike to what he's used to, I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt and put him in rubbish, which still isn't great, let's be honest. Next up we have Ralph Hernandez. Now, this is an interesting one because he has had a very topsy-turvy season. For the first 5 races of the season, he would have gone in this tier because he was having a complete disaster of a season. After 5 rounds in the championship, he had 6 World Championship points, was getting battered by Agara. He was having a terrible time. But since then, he's had a really good season. He's turned it around massively. Obviously, he got 5th place in Brno, which was a great result. And he's dragged himself up to decent, I think. He's now beating his teammate Agara in the championship. And he's just generally looked a lot better in these past couple months. So, honestly, I'm putting him in decent because I think overall his season it fits that category well. I think putting him in rubbish or disaster would be very harsh, considering he's turned it around really well. One man who hasn't turned around his bad form, though, is Brad Binder. I think he's having a disastrous season. We need to remember that Brad Binder has been on the KTM for his entire career. This is his 6th season on that KTM. We expect him to be one of, if not the best KTM, and he's having a terrible time. He's behind Vinales, who's been injured for some races this season and just had terrible luck. And despite Binder, not crashing all that often, he's still behind Vinales in the championship. He's gotten barely any good results this season. He's mostly just been languishing in about 10th place. And he's been consistently the 3rd best KTM when he should be, at the very minimum, the 2nd best. He's not had a single top 5 finish all season, which just says it all really. It's been a disastrous season for Brad Binder, mostly because we know how much quality he's got. We expect him to be one of, if not the best KTM. And yeah, considering how good he is, he's having a disastrous season. Now, on the opposite end of the scale, we've got Somkat Chantra next, who is somebody who we had 0 expectations of going into this season, yet he still managed to disappoint. He is also going into a disastrous season. To score 1 point at the halfway stage is absolutely abysmal. I put Luca Marini in the bottom tier last season for doing the exact same, and I see no reason why Somkat Chandra shouldn't be in that tier as well. I know that the expectations of him were lower, but at the same time, Honda have got a better bike this year. I know there's been some talk about him not having the proper updated bike, but he should still be scoring more than 1 point, and he should still be beating the test riders. If you can't beat Lorenzo Savadori, you don't deserve to be anywhere other than the bottom tier, so that is where Chandra is going. Yeah, a pretty embarrassing season for him so far, to be honest. Next up we have Joan May. Now, he has been extremely unlucky these past few weeks. I believe he's been crashed out in the last 3 Grand Prix. He's been so unlucky, but at the same time, we can't ignore the fact that he's also crashed out quite a lot on his own. I'm going to put him in rubbish season, mostly because his points tally is not very impressive. He is 20 points behind his teammate in the championship. He's got less points than Bastianini. And, while some of that is down to him being crashed out or crashing out when he was in a good position, he needs to be able to bring home the points, like Bastianini has done this season. Bastianini's been slow, but at least he's bringing the bike home. Joan May, he's just not finishing enough races, so I can't put him any higher than rubbish. And this might be being a bit kind to him, to be honest, but I'm just going to keep him there before I change my mind. Next up we have Pedro Aosta. Of course, Aosta, he just got his first podium in Brno, and overall I think he's had a really good season, so I'm going to put him in the really good category. To me, it's clear that KTM is a really difficult bike to be fast on while also not crashing, and while Aosta has had quite a few mistakes and crashes this season, he is still the highest KTM in the championship by some distance. He's got nearly double the points of Maverick Vinales. So it shows that despite the fact that Acosta's been crashing a lot, it's clearly paying off for him because he's been by far the best KTM. Yeah, considering how dodgy that KTM bike is, I think Acosta is doing a really good job. He sits 7th in the championship, ahead of Joan Zarco, by the way, so I've got him ahead of Zarco in this tier list. I think he's right at the top of really good. I think if he crashed just a little bit less, he'd be going in incredible, but he's made too many mistakes, so he's going in really good. Next up we have Alex Rins. Now, Rins had a very bad season last season, and I think he's having another very bad season this season. He's shown very little pace this season, but at the same time, unlike Joan May, a bit like Bastini really, he's managing to bring the bike home and get some decent results, and as a result, his points tally isn't actually that bad. I was seriously considering putting him in disastrous season, however he is ahead of Joan May in the championship, so I can't put him a full tier below, so I'm going to put him at the bottom of rubbish. Overall, he should just be doing much better, I think. He's only got one top 10 finish all season, and that was in Germany when only 10 people finished the race. So, you know, the results have been far from impressive, but the fact he's staying on the bike, getting some points at least, stops me from putting him in the bottom tier. He just about scrapes a rubbish season. We now move on to Jack Miller. Now, Jack Miller, after last season, I was expecting him to have yet another disastrous season. But he's turned it around quite well, really, and I think he's had a decent season overall. Miller, like, you know, in pure Jack Miller style, he's been inconsistent. He's had some really good qualifying results. He's had some good race performances, like in USA and Silverstone. But there's been other times where his lack of tyre management has really cost him. Overall, he's had a patchy season, but, you know, he's the second highest Yamaha in the Drivers' Championship. So that's enough for me to put him in decent. Yeah, a decent season from Jack Miller and a big upgrade on last season. Next up we have Fabio Jani. A bit like Jack Miller really, he's had a very patchy season. He's had some weekends like in Germany or Mugello or USA where he's looked quick and gotten on the podium, or in the case of Sachsenring, nearly got on the podium. However, there's been other weekends like in Brno where he's been absolute dog shite. I'm going to put him in decent because I think, you know, the mix of really good weekends and rubbish weekends, you know, it averages out to the top of decent in my opinion. He's not doing a bad job, he's not doing a good job either. Well, that's a bit harsh. He's having a decent season, he's doing perfectly fine. The expectation for him is to beat his teammate, and he's only just doing that because of injury, so he's going behind his teammate in the decent tier. Next up we've got Fino Alder. Now, this is always difficult to judge the rookies. And Fino Alder is especially difficult because he is on the best bike on the grid. So any really good performances he has, we need to take with a pinch of salt. And at the same time, he's also had some inconsistent weekends. Like in Brno just recently, he wasn't very fast that weekend. I will put him at the top of decent, the very top of decent. Part of me wants to put him in really good, especially for that podium he got in Le Mans and a really impressive weekend in Qatar. But we do need to remember, he's on the GP24, which is clearly the best bike on the grid. And yeah, while he has had some really impressive performances, I think his lack of consistency stops me from putting him in really good. So, Alder can go in the decent tier, I think. Next up we have Pekco Bagna. And this might be a bit of a hot take, but I'm just going to say it. Disastrous season for Bagna. He is having a truly terrible season. 1 race victory, 1 pole position, not a single sprint victory, 3rd in the championship. For Pekco Bagna, that is a disastrous season in my opinion. For me, going into the season, the bare minimum expectation for Bagna was to get top 2 in the championship, and he's not even doing that. He currently sits 48 points behind Alex Marquez in the championship. That is abysmal for Bagna. We need to remember, he's a double world champion. He's finished in the top 2 of the championship in the last 4 seasons. So, I think Bagna, he should be aiming for bare minimum top 2 in the championship. He should be getting at least like 5 victories this season. And the fact that he can't even win at his favourite tracks like Mugello and Assen and Qatar is seriously concerning. Some people might say, well, he's on the same bike as Di Giannantonio, and Di Giannantonio is indecent. But we need to remember, Digi is somebody who has 1 Grand Prix victory to his name, while Pekco Bagna is a double world champion. Bagnaia is also somebody who has 30 Grand Prix victories and 25 pole positions to his name, and all of a sudden he can only get one in half a season. Not good enough. Disastrous season for him. He needs to clinch second place in the championship if he is to have anything other than a disastrous season. Yeah, truly terrible for Pekco. Next up we have Marco Bezzecchi. Now, a bit like Ralph Hernandez, if we were judging this off the first 6 races of the season, he would be going in the bottom of the bottom. He was having a truly terrible season. He was getting beaten by Agara. He was having an embarrassing season for the first 6 races. However, since the end of Le Mans, he's had an amazing season, and I think he's been the second best rider on the grid. He now sits 4th in the championship, so I'm going to put Marco Bezzecchi in really good. I think his start to the season was too bad for me to put him in incredible and any higher than this, but he's still been very impressive for the past 6 rounds, so I'm going to put him in really good. To be fighting for the podium every weekend on that Aprilia is seriously impressive, so overall he's had a really good season. Next up we've got Alex Marquez, and I think this one is pretty self-explanatory really. He is going in incredible. We need to remember that before this season, Alex Marquez had 0 Grand Prix victories to his name and 2 sprint victories. For him to now be sitting 2nd in the championship, to have about 10 extra podiums to his name and a sprint victory, he's finally got his first win in MotoGP. You know, it's an incredible season for him. And, you know, I doubted him going into the season. I didn't think he would be able to put this type of form up. And he's proven me so wrong. He's been so consistent, which is something which he's really lacked for his whole career. I'm really impressed with how he's managed to become so consistent. And yeah, he's been taking full advantage of having the best bike on the grid. And he is reaping the rewards. And yeah, incredible season for Alex Marquez. Next up we have Agara. Now, Agara started the season absolutely incredibly. You know, getting 4th place in his opening race in Thailand was absolutely phenomenal. For a while he was the highest scoring Aprilia, but then he got injured in Silverstone, and since then he's been struggling to get back to the form, and his performances as of recent have been a bit more rubbish. I'm going to put him in decent, which might be harsh. However, I think to put him in really good, he needs to be beating his teammate in the championship. And I know he's been injured. I don't know, I just think Agara should be doing a bit better as of late. Obviously he started amazingly, and he is still a rookie. I don't think I can put him in really good, and I don't think he's been better than Fino Alder over the whole season. He's had a few crashes as of late, and, you know, 2 points from the past 3 races just isn't very good, so like, I know he's been injured recently, however, we have also seen Aprilia take a big upturn in form recently, and, you know, considering Aprilia are now good and Agara is suddenly not as good, I don't know, it's a bit confusing and a bit worrying. Maybe he's still a bit injured, I don't know. So I can't justify putting him in really good when he's not beating his teammate in the championship, and I also don't think he's been as good as Fino Alder. You know, part of me wants to put both of them in really good, but, you know, I just don't think they have both been really good across the whole season, so I am just going to put both of them at the top of decent. Which might be harsh, you lot can let me know in the comments, but that is my honest opinion. I think Agara has had, I think decent's a bit harsh, but he's had a good season, but he's not had a really good season, so he's going in the decent tier. Next up we've got Miguel Oliveira, and Miguel Oliveira has had by far the worst season of anybody on the grid. He has got a grand total of 6 World Championship points. I know he's also been struggling with injuries this season, however he's been back from injury since Le Mans, and his performances have been just as ass as they were before he got injured. And the thing that tells me that he is truly done at the top level is the fact that even when it rains he can't get a good result out of that anymore. You know, Oliveira used to be the rain master, and now when it rained in Le Mans and in Germany, he still wasn't able to get anywhere near the points, so you know, I think Oliveira is just done at the top level. It's clear that he's had the best of it beaten out of him by injuries, and he's just flailing around at the bottom of the grid, and it's just embarrassing for him. You know, 6 World Championship points, less than Lorenzo Savadori, less than Jorge Martin, who's done 2 races. You know, it's embarrassing for him, and he's had a disastrous season, and he needs to leave the grid in my opinion. And finally we have Marc Marquez. Now Marc Marquez, obviously he is leading the championship, he's won a lot of races this season. However, he has made quite a few mistakes this season, like in Jerez and in Silverstone and in USA. He crashed out of really good results in there, or just had bad results. He also, he bottled a pole position at Brno. He's made a lot of mistakes this season, so I'm going to have to put him, in decent, because he's obviously not lived up to the expectations. I expect him to be, not making these mistakes, and I don't know, he's made quite a few mistakes this season. I'm joking, guys. Obviously, he goes in Incredible, if it will let me put him there. He goes at the very top of Incredible, and if it weren't for a few mistakes, I'd be making a separate tier just for him. He has had an absolutely phenomenal season. Arguably the best season we've seen from Marquez in his career, and that is saying something. 9 Grand Prix victories, 11 sprint wins. He's won the last 5 sprint wins and main race victories in a row. He leads the championship by 120 points. Yeah, he has been undoubtedly the best rider on the grid, easily. He's so far clear of his brother, and like I said, if it wasn't for 1 or 2 errors, I'd be making a separate tier just for him, because he's been so good. He is certainly going to win this championship. He could probably, spend about 3 months sitting at home doing nothing and he'd still win the World Championship. That's how good he's been. So, yeah, that's how the list ends. Marc Marquez obviously at the top. And that concludes the tier list. So, there is my final tier list. And now I want you guys to let me know what you think. So, let me know in the comments below. What do you think of my tier list and my rankings? Have I been too kind to certain riders or been too harsh? Let me know. And while you're there, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel while you are there. And yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys very soon. Bye bye.